So, stress, sleep, and metabolism. Bear with me because this is the first time I've used this Fuse meeting. So if you ever feel like this, you're not eating, right? You're dealing with emotional stress. You're trying to get rid of it. What we're going to go over tonight is how your body reacts physically. Oh, it looks like we have somebody else joining us. So how your body reacts physically to stress and sleep deprivation. Because once you understand the process that your body goes through, that start to correct the actions and the thoughts that you have around food or other things, other unhealthy habits that might happen when you are dealing with stress or sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation we're going to define as less than 6 hours per night. So optimal sleep is getting consistently 6 to 9 hours of sleep per night and having that be continuous. So if you wake up a few times a night, then usually you don't get that deep restorative sleep that you really need. We're going to talk about how this affects your short and your long-term health and fitness goals, which you might already be aware of. And then most importantly, what you can do to change it. So we're going to talk about some specific strategies and techniques. Things work different for everyone, so I'm going to give you some different options to go home with and hopefully try out. And then, of course, Q&A along the way, and then we'll have a little bit of extra time at the end as well. So, who has stress?
You have stress? I think everybody does.
Okay, right. We all have stress, some more so than others, probably throughout our life. Stress kind of goes up and down. What we're going to focus in on is not how to get rid of the stress, because I can't solve your problems or issues that might come up. A lot of times you can't anticipate stressful moments in life. So instead of focusing on the solutions to get rid of the stress or to minimize it, instead we're going to focus on how you respond to it, because that's really the only way that you can manage stress. So we're not going to talk about reducing it, because I don't know how to reduce your stress. But what we can talk about is how to manage your response to it and your thoughts around it. And who doesn't always get 6 to 9 hours of restful sleep every night?
Me.
And it's tough to do. And as we go through this, you'll see the importance of it, I hope. One thing before we dive into it, we're going to talk and focus mostly on metabolism and how stress and sleep affect fat loss. But we do know that both of those have a huge effect on overall long-term health as well. So any disease or condition that can be connected back to inflammation has its root in stress and not getting enough sleep. So heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, they're seeing a lot of connections now between even people who are fit, they do everything else right, so they eat healthy, they exercise, but they're stressed out all the time, or they work 80 hours a week and only get 4 hours of sleep every night. Those people still have the same rates of all the diseases connected to inflammation that people who don't take care of themselves do. So when we talk about the health equation, if you will, stress and sleep a lot of times get overlooked, and so that's why focusing on them can sometimes give you better results than you might anticipate. And when I'm working with individual clients, a lot of times they'll come to me because they've hit a plateau. They're not seeing results. It's common usually among women. They're taking care of everyone else except for themselves. And so they have high levels of stress. I'm not saying that guys don't, but they they don't take enough time for self-care. And so that affects their stress and their sleep levels. They're doing everything else right on paper a lot of times. They're eating right, they've cut back on calories, they're exercising more, but they're not seeing the results that they want. And a lot of times it comes back to stress and sleep. And so we focus on those things first. And then the other things kind of fall into place. Another interesting thing is that in a previous job, I worked with a lot of veterans. And we found that veterans who suffer from PTSD have high levels of type 2 diabetes, even among those that were at a healthy weight and took care of themselves. They had no other risk factors. But because stress then creates inflammation and it stresses your body physically, that's what was leading or is leading to really high levels of type 2 diabetes in veterans. So it's kind of interesting and, of course, unfortunate. All right. So this is usually people know what the fight or flight response is. So it's when you are in that moment of stress, you either want to fight, maybe you're frustrated with someone driving down the road, or you want to get away. So this goes back to the caveman days. And this is how our body still reacts with our hormonal response. So back in caveman days, there's usually some sort of a physical threat. And that's why you have a surge in adrenaline. You need more energy. So a lot of times you'll have a release of energy or adrenaline and blood sugar. But we don't have stress in the same way today. Usually it's not a physical threat, it's some sort of an emotional stress or psychological stress that we're dealing with. Yet our body hasn't adapted to that change. So we still respond, our body still responds in a very physical way as far as the different hormones that are produced. And we'll kind of come back to this a few times throughout the next few slides so you can see how it kind of all pieces together. So we have both acute and chronic stress. So acute stress would be in that moment. You're frustrated with something. You have a deadline at work. Your kids are screaming. Something like that. It's short-lived, it's over in a few minutes or a few hours. And then there's chronic stress, where you might be dealing with something stressful, financial issues, job situation, relationships, that are just taking a toll on you day in and day out. Again, that fight or flight response, it happens in both situations. In physiology, unfortunately, it hasn't changed. So our bodies don't know that we're no longer trying to run from a saber-toothed tiger. So we're going to look at the three main hormones that are involved in the stress response, also involved with sleep, and then they're directly connected to metabolism. So first, we have cortisol, which is responsible for fat storage, or especially around your belly. It also increases cravings, especially for foods that are high in carbohydrates, because back in caveman days, if you were running for your life, you're expending energy, and so then you need more energy to make up for that. Now we're not running from anything, but we still have the fat storage and the increase in cravings. One of the reasons why is because then when you eat carbohydrates, it helps to create what I like to call the happy hormones. So serotonin and tryptophan, which then help you calm down and feel relaxed. So how many times have you, or if someone can just chime in here, have you felt stressed, had some sort of, given into some sort of a craving, let's say Usually it's sweets or things that are high carbohydrate. And then you really do feel calmer and more relaxed. Does that happen to anyone?
Yep.
Okay.
Me.
Yeah. So there really is, there's something going on there, and it's, a lot of times people think that in order to manage cravings or to lose weight, they just need to have more willpower. But it's really hard when you're trying to fight against your own physiology. And so a lot of times when people have stress and emotional eating challenges, or they give in to cravings, they just try to not do it at all. We're going to look at a few strategies, all the solutions that I give you at the end of the webinar. It's not about just completely stopping. You're going to replace the food with something else that elicits the same hormonal response. So there's other ways for your body to create serotonin and tryptophan and have that similar calming, relaxing effect that eating 5 cookies or a couple donuts does, but instead you're going to have something healthier to do it with. This also is connected to your the neuro pathways in your brain. So the more that you give into that craving, the more your brain responds to that and remembers the next time. So it works both ways. But some of the techniques that I'm going to share with you, they actually help to rewire the way your brain responds to stress. So I like to remind people that when they're really trying to work through stress eating and cravings, the first few times, the first 5 or 10 times that you tell yourself, no, don't give in, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really challenging because you're trying to fight your body. But by practicing that and going through with that new behavior, you're starting to set up a habit. So that your brain actually has a different response eventually, and it gets easier to tell yourself, no, I need to go for a walk and not go to the vending machine. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure everyone's still with me. The second hormone is leptin, and leptin tells us when we're full. It helps to regulate our appetite and our metabolism. And what happens is when we have stress, both chronic and acute, and sleep deprivation, and this can happen just with one of little sleep, the leptin in your body goes down. So you're going to feel hungrier the very next day. I don't know, has anyone experienced that where they only get a few hours of sleep and the next day they're ravenous? I know that happens to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So leptin goes down. Also, one reason that long-term weight loss is so hard is because leptin is actually produced in our fat cells. So when you lose weight and lose fat, less leptin is produced. And so you have less of the hormone telling you that you're full. And that makes it a little bit harder to keep the weight off.
Can you repeat that, Erin?
Yeah. Leptin is produced in your fat cells. And it's the hormone that makes you feel full, and it helps to regulate your appetite. So when you lose fat or lose weight, then less leptin is being produced and secreted. So you have less appetite and less fullness, the satiating hormone being produced. So that's one of the reasons it makes long-term metabolism so hard, or long-term weight loss so hard. I mean, it's very complex, but that's just one aspect of it.
Thank you.
Sure. So our third and final hormone is ghrelin. And ghrelin is responsible for increasing hunger. So when you have stress or when you have lack of sleep, ghrelin goes up. Remember, leptin goes down, ghrelin goes up. So you feel hungrier, your metabolism is slowing down because it wants to hold on to the energy that it has because, it thinks that you need to run from something dangerous. It decreases fat burning. So you've got both things working against you. Leptin, which helps you keep you full, is going down. Ghrelin is going up. So obviously, this is not a good equation for overall health or for fat loss. All right. So that's the hormonal response part of it. This is usually how, I like this diagram in how it kind of breaks down or organizes how we usually respond to stress. So usually there's something that triggers it. There's an event. You think something about what happens. You feel something, your emotions are triggered, and then you take action or you respond. So one of those responses can be with food. Again, to try to calm down all those hormones that are floating around and try to get you back to that calm, relaxed state. And so you can have some sort of a coping behavior. And so we're going to focus on your thoughts. That's what some of the techniques we're going to talk about, what your thoughts are. Changing your thoughts so that then your feelings and your actions end up being different in the long run. Because we can't try to change the action. This is what most people try to do with stress eating. They try to just cut out the food and stop stress eating. So they cut out the action out of the equation, but they forget to address the thoughts and the feelings that lead up to that action. So that's where, if you focus the energy on the thoughts and the feelings, then more positive, healthful actions follow. And go ahead and chime in here if you have any other thoughts or ideas or techniques that have really worked for you on how to manage stress, because it's really about finding something that works for you, and not everyone works the same way. I worked with a lady who she found that doing small amounts of yoga, like 10, 15 minutes a day, really helped, because her biggest downfall was stress eating and going for carbs throughout the day. She was a stay-at-home mom and was dealing with 2 toddlers, and that's how she kind of dealt with it. But she replaced the carbohydrates with yoga, and that really worked for her. But a couple of things for immediate relief. One of the best things is exercise, because exercise actually does produce the hormones that give you a calming, relaxing effect. You might not experience it while you're exercising, but afterwards you should. So exercise is just, it's going to give you multiple benefits, and one of the nice things is help with stress relief.
If I'm thinking straight, I go for a walk. If I'm thinking straight, I go for a walk.
And if you're not thinking straight,
then I go for the carbs.
The hard part, I think, we probably all know things that do work for us and techniques to manage stress, but it is difficult to remember those things or to want to do those, because sometimes they're the harder thing. They're not the easy thing to do, especially in those moments of stress and frustration. But like I said before, the more that you do that positive action, then it'll help to rewire the way your brain responds to the stress, so that eventually it kind of becomes an automatic response, that instead of going for the food, your automatic response is to go for a walk. breathing is another good one. 1 to 3 minutes is all you need, and it actually really does help to calm down all those hormones that are making you feel stressed. So if you do deep breathing into, like if you put your hands on your stomach and breathe into your stomach, nice slow breaths.
And breathe into your what? Put your hands on what?
On your stomach.
Oh, your stomach. Oh, okay, okay.
And then kind of breathe into your stomach. Within 1 minute, what that's doing is massaging the vagus nerve, which then helps your brain to release the tryptophan and serotonin and help you feel calmer. And also to manage the adrenaline if you're having that sort of a response. So it's kind of a nice thing when you're in the heat of the moment of stress. It's something that you could do without anyone knowing it. If you didn't want to put your hand on your stomach, you could just do a little bit of deep breathing.
Okay. Let's try that at work.
Yeah, you can do it sitting at your desk. So those are two things for immediate relief. But long term, mindfulness. Has anyone heard of mindfulness?
What did you say? What is it?
It's called mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
The full name is mindfulness-based stress reduction. I first learned about this when I was working at a YMCA, and I helped to coordinate a study called the Mindful Eating and Living Study, where it was 6 weeks long. People had to be, I think, have a BMI over 30, so they had some weight that they could lose. And they focused on something called mindful eating. And I'm going to give you some resources so that you can look at them online on your own time. And what mindfulness is a lot of times, like maybe right now, you're thinking about things that either happened earlier today or maybe thinking about everything else that you have to get done tonight before tomorrow. Your mind wanders a lot. And it happens a lot with stress, and it adds stress to our lives. So how many times do you find yourself thinking about something other than the present moment? Probably a lot of the time, right? So what mindfulness does is it helps reconnect you to experiencing living in the present moment. So you let go of the things that you can't control over, or that you can't control. That's a lot of times where more stress comes from, is that we think about all the things that we really can't control. And we also think about all the things that might possibly happen. When we take those things out of the equation and kind of quiet all the chatter in our head, then that can really help to calm down our stress levels. The way that you can start to practice mindfulness is really through any sort of activity. You can mindfully wash the dishes or mindfully wash your hands. But the most common ways people do it is either doing mindful eating, walking, or breathing. Because when was the last time that you sat down to a meal and you weren't doing something else, whether it be reading, watching TV, being in front of the computer, and you actually focused on enjoying the meal?
I try to do that because I know I will eat more if I'm not paying attention.
Yeah. The same thing with breathing. You can just focus on your breath, and it's not about trying to forget about your stresses. What you do is you acknowledge that you have, stress or distracting thoughts. You just take note of it, and then you bring the focus back to whatever activity it is that you're focusing on. And you don't have to do it for the whole day, even starting out with just a couple minutes. And again, that's why I mentioned some of the things that you might do every day, like wash dishes or hands, because I had a really hard time just sitting and breathing and focusing on my breath. That just kind of drove me crazy. So I thought, okay, well, I'll practice, doing something that was active, but something that I knew I was going to be doing every day. So I practiced it in preparation for childbirth. Um, so to kind of stay in the present moment, not get too wrapped up in the things that are out of your control. And then again, yoga. So when I recommend people start yoga, especially for weight loss, I'm not recommending it for the number of calories that you're going to burn, but really the other benefits of it and how it's going to help manage stress and then consequently help manage cravings. It also does help to regulate your appetite and suppress your appetite to some extent.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a few things on sleep and what can help with it. Does anyone have a hard time getting restful sleep?
Yes.
Okay. And I know for some people it's more of a matter of just making sure that they kind of shut things down early enough, or you're trying to get more stuff done during the day, or I don't know, stay up late watching a TV show, or whatever it is. So that's kind of a time management thing. We're not going to address that. But if you have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, these are just a few things that you can try. One, shut down technology 30 minutes before you're going to go to bed. So don't watch TV and don't be in front of the computer, because that keeps your brain stimulated even after you've shut it off. So it's hard for your brain to really relax and then also enter into that deep sleep. A couple other things that are kind of obvious: try to avoid eating a large meal. Sometimes alcohol can interfere with sleep. Even though you might think it helps you sleep, it does interfere with getting into the deepest stage of sleep. The thing is something called PMR, progressive muscle relaxation. So, and you can use this for the stress piece as well. But what you do is, when we post this, so when Tim posts this on the member website, this is a link to an exercise, so it gives you instructions on how. But the way you do it is you start with your toes and you squeeze them for like 5 to 10 seconds, and then you release. And then you just move up your body all the way to your head. Then next you would do your calves. You can squeeze your calves as tight as possible for 5 to 10 seconds and release. And so by tensing up and then releasing, doing it physically then helps your brain mentally to relax as well. And it's pretty effective. When I worked with the veterans, again, this was a technique that a lot of them used, and it worked extremely well. And they were dealing with pretty heavy issues of PTSD, and so that was one thing that worked really well for them.
Okay. Start with your toes, and then your calves, then your thighs, stomach. Okay.
Yep. And then you would move all the way up into your face and scrunch your face up as hard as possible, and then release.
Okay. For 10 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to try that tonight.
And then the final thing is a supplement called melatonin.
Okay. Yeah. I know about melatonin.
Okay. Lisa, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question about that, the PMR that you were just talking about. My issue isn't getting to sleep at night. My issue is when I get woken up in the middle of the night, be it kids or be it noises or whatever, I can just lay for hours trying to go back to sleep.
Okay. So this is effective for that sort of situation as well.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a if you are getting woken up by, say, kids or something. And again, it doesn't work the same for everyone, but it would definitely be worth a try.
Right, I'll try it, definitely.
Okay. And then the final thing, the melatonin supplement. So this is, your body produces melatonin naturally, but sometimes when our sleep cycles are off, melatonin can help get us back into our natural rhythm. It's safe. If it's going to work for you, it should work within about 3 weeks of starting to take it. So if it doesn't work after 3 weeks, it's probably not going to work for you because it doesn't work for 100% of people. But you take it for a while, but then eventually you can just wean yourself off of it. So I like that, the fact that it's not like your body becomes dependent on it. It just helps you get back into your natural rhythm and sleep cycle.
So, Erin, is it just a pill?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You just take it just before you go to bed or something?
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head the exact
directions beyond the thing.
But I think, you take it maybe, I don't know, I want to say a little while before you're going to go to bed.
Okay.
So these are some resources to check out, mindful.org, or even if you get on YouTube or Google and Google mindfulness, there's a lot of different websites that pull up. But this one in particular, it has some good tips on how to get started with practicing mindfulness, mindful eating, or mindful breathing, whatever you want to try. And then yoga for weight loss with CBD, you can get through my website or through Amazon, but it's a good one. It's by Suzanne Deason, and I like it because it's gentle, and if you've never done yoga before, it gives 3 different levels. So if you can't put your nose down to your toes like me, you don't feel stupid. And then there's some books through my website. Again, the link will just take you there. And there's some different mindfulness books and books that focus on emotional and stress eating. So John Kabat-Zinn, he is kind of like the godfather of mindfulness. And so it's pretty interesting stuff if you're interested in it. And then this last one is a link to 3 different breathing exercises by Dr. Weil, who is kind of on the forefront of complementary and alternative medicine. But I like breathing exercises because they're pretty short. Anyone can do them, and they're backed up by research that shows that people actually have a reduction in blood pressure, have a reduction in stress that's been measured. So those exercises definitely do work. So any questions about any of those strategies or techniques or any resources that you'd like to know more about? No? All right.
That's what I can think of.
So just to kind of summarize, again, you want to try to focus on the root cause, and then focusing on your thoughts, so that then the action that comes in response to those thoughts and feelings is changed. And the more that you practice the healthy behavior, the easier it will get. I know it's easier said than done, but every time you take the opportunity to choose what might be the tougher route, but the healthier choice, then your body and your brain will get more used to that, so that eventually it's going to become second nature, just the way maybe right now you're responding to stress in an unhealthy way, and it's your automatic response. Well, eventually the healthy choice will become that automatic response.
That makes sense.
So any other questions or comments? No? Well, I hope that, no? Okay. If you do, feel free to email me or message me on Facebook. I hope that this was beneficial. Also, Tim and I are trying to make these webinars as useful and helpful, also a little bit entertaining, I hope, as possible. So if you have suggestions or feedback, please let us know. Also, the time of it, we're still trying to figure out if that has anything to do with people attending or not. So if you have some days and times as far as preferences, do let us know. So we're trying to figure that out.
Okay.
The next webinar Tim will be hosting, he's going to talk about unstable surface training and how that can help with balance as well as strength. So it'll be pretty interesting.
Okay. Is that next week or sometime?
No, it'll be next month. So
next month. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get out an email sooner than this last one so that people have more of a heads up. Also, I have an online membership now, which it includes meal solutions emailed to you every month. So it's not a complete meal plan. It's what I call a meal mapper. So it gives you different categories of recipes, but they're complete meals, because one thing that irritates me on recipe websites is that a lot of times it's for single dishes. And so then I still have to think about, okay, well, how am I going to make this a balanced meal? Also, there's no crazy ingredients. They're all relatively simple and healthy. So you get that. And then along with that, access to a recipe library. I'm going to be adding a lot of video content, so things like cooking demos and product reviews and some other things. So you can check that out at my website. I'm going to be sending, actually, for all of Tim's members, I'm going to send you the August meal mapper so you can see what that's like. And if you try the recipes again, I'd love to hear some feedback on if it's helpful or not. All right. Well, unless you guys have any other comments or questions, thanks for attending, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Bye.